Got 9 new retro game pickups here for you today, guys, and I guarantee there's hidden gems in here that you've never heard of, you've never seen, and they're worth a lot of money and you had no idea. These all came together from the same seller. Got them as a package deal, and they are in no particular order. And I'm going to tell you why I got each game and why you might want to also consider picking up one of these games. First game on the list, Harvest Moon number 3. So I did get a steal of a deal on this. This is worth about $70, $75 Canadian. I got it for $17. And I'll tell you why. See if you can catch it. So in the title, it's Harvest Moon 3, but that 3 is really hidden in the corner there. And I know for a fact the seller thought that this was just straight up Harvest Moon number 1, because that's what he was selling it as. And as soon as I noticed the 3 and realized this is not Harvest Moon 1, I was bidden and I got her for a very low 17 Canadian dollars. So I'm very happy with that purchase. Hey, if you don't know what you have and you're selling it for cheap, that's your problem. I'm here to find deals, and I'm here to add games to my collection. And by the way, Harvest Moon for the Super Nintendo was the best Harvest Moon ever made. And no other game will ever surpass that game. Even though they've had, the farming simulators nowadays are way more advanced and there's way more you can do. You got the Rune Factory series, you got the Stardew Valleys. Well, Stardew Valley, you may be trying to be like Harvest Moon, but you will never be like Harvest Moon. Harvest Moon for the Super Nintendo, best Harvest Moon ever made, best farming simulator ever made. One of the best on the Super Nintendo. Very expensive game though. Next game, this is a game from my childhood that I surprisingly do not own. I thought I did, but I do not own this. This is Baseball Simulator 1000, but don't let the name fool you. This is not a baseball simulator. This is like, how do you even describe this? This is like as if wizards were pitchers. If every team's pitcher was a spell-casting, magic-using wizard, that is this game. And that's why I love it so much. And I played the hell out of this with a buddy of mine way back in the day. We played this like you wouldn't believe, because it almost felt like we were playing an RPG. I mean, you could sort of even compare it a little bit to Base Wars for the regular NES, where you have robots. It's not quite the same, as in there's no robots or players that you spend money on and upgrade parts and get better gloves and better weapons and all that jazz. But in terms of like crazy stuff you can do, I don't know. That's the closest game out there that I can think of that's similar to this. But this game, very fun, very easy to play. Anybody can do it. And if you want to feel like you're casting spells instead of pitching, because all the pitches are crazy. There's like, you can spin the, crazy spin spirals. You can do standard fast pitch and all that stuff. You can have like a ball that splits into multiple balls. It's the closest you'll ever get to Mage Wizard Baseball. Okay, so next game here, the legendary Starfy. I had never heard of this previously. It is 2 to 4 player, and it's kind of like an underwater Kirby game. That's probably the best way to describe it, or maybe an underwater Mario game. So you are like a starfish, so you're mostly underwater, but there are Kirby would be the closest thing, because you can morph into other types of characters. This game was very new to me. I had never actually heard of this until the seller had listed it. So I haven't played it, but I was able to watch some videos on it, and it seemed really, really interesting. So it says 2-player wireless multi-card play and wireless DS single card download play. So this is 2 to 4 player. I think there's some mini games for 4-player mode. And I really like multiplayer games. I'm always trying to find hidden gem multiplayer games, and I think this is one of them. and it's fairly cheap. I could definitely see this game going up in value in the long term. It's probably, I'm going to guess that it's probably easy, but guess what? All Kirby games are easy, but they're still fun and people love them. So the game doesn't need to be hard to be good. Now here's another little bit of a hidden gem. Locke's Quest, underrated, and I'll tell you why. This is a tower defense game. Tower defense style game, which I do love tower defense style games, but only if they're multiplayer. And of course, this one is multiplayer. It's two-player. Two-player co-op. So for that reason alone, I do recommend getting this game. I think they actually made an HD remake of this for the PS4. It's probably download only. So if you do have a PlayStation, check out the PlayStation Store. It might even be on Steam. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty certain that I saw some sort of HD remake. So that may be a great alternative way to play Locke's Quest. And by the way, this was from the creators of Drown to Life. Don't know what that is, or Drawn to Life. Don't know what it is, but if they're advertising it, it must be good. All right. I'm going to save the best for last. I'm going to skip this one. Best for last. For those of you that watched the full video, remember, best game coming up at the end. Here's one called Heroes of Ruin. This was another one that I had never heard of, because handhelds have never really been my cup of tea. I'm new to collecting for handhelds. But I got it for two reasons. Number one, it does have local play, multiplayer, 2 to 4 players, versus and co-op. But second reason, Square Enix. I'm a big Square fan. I've never heard of this game before. Would have never guessed this to be a Square Enix game in a million years. Never would have guessed it. And I know that there are 4 different playable characters. Never played it, but perhaps the closest similar game would be a Diablo Gauntlet style of game. Gauntlet Legends style of game. And here's another game that is going to go up in value. Midway Arcade Origins. Got the PlayStation 3 version. It's not my version of preference because I prefer the 360. I mostly collect for the 360. I do dabble in PS3, but PS3 I mostly dabble in from an investment perspective, because my real personal, the games that I want to play personally are the 360 versions of all the games that I own. And this does have everything from your classic arcade games, your Joust, your Rampages, your Total Carnages, to newer games such as Smash TV, Super Off-Road, Rampart. There's over 30 games in here, all in HD. Midway Arcade Origins. And you can also play in 3D. That's another thing I'll point out. A lot of 360 and PS3 games, you can actually play in 3D. I've never actually done it, but there's even a racing game. I think it's called Mayhem 3D. Like, I think it actually has 3D in the title. It might just be Mayhem. Like, there's games that they literally made that you're supposed to play in 3D. But there are a lot of really cool games that you can play in 3D. I think you have to wear the 3D glasses. But like I said, I've never actually done it. But I'm pretty sure from that Mayhem racing game, I think it was bundled with 3D glasses. Like the original game, brand new, came with 3D glasses inside the case. So that's a really cool feature. And by the way, I think all of these 3D games, 3D compatible games for the 360 and the PS3, I do think that those will go up in value. I think when word spreads one day and people realize that that's a really cool feature that no one really paid any attention to, they're going to look back on it fondly and say, hey man, that's really cool. Like to be able to put the 3D glasses on and play a game in 3D, that's cool. Okay, so here's one. It's a little bit beat up. PS3 exclusive. This is the Complete Experience Watchman. The End is Nigh. You cannot get this version on the 360. What makes this version special is that it comes with the actual film. And by the looks of it, I guess it's the director's cut version, which is really cool. That's the best version. I didn't even know that. And that's the Blu-ray movie. Okay, so I guess it's not a DVD, it's a Blu-ray. Very cool, though. This is climbing up in value. This is worth about $50 right now. And I think it is a little bit rare. Mine's a little bit beat up, but I'll take it. I paid about $20 for it, in case you're wondering. Now here's a game that I paid $2 for. I didn't really want it, but I've been trying to find a hidden gem 007 game that my old roommates told me about. And I don't know which one it is, so I've just got to try them all until I figure out which one it is. And they couldn't remember the title either. This is 007 for the Xbox, which is why I didn't want it. Everything or nothing for the Xbox. No manual, but I paid $2 for it. So this I did not buy because I think the value will go up. The value will not go up, and it will probably never go up. I bought it because it's $2 and I want to play it. And it is 2-player. And it has a 2-player co-op mode. 2-player co-op mode. That's why I paid $2 for it. This is an awesome... because it has 2-player co-op mode, I already know it's awesome. So, again, I would rather have the GameCube version and not the Xbox version. When it comes to OG Xbox, I do not collect very much for OG Xbox. I like 360 and GameCube. Now, if you stuck around for the end, this is the guaranteed hidden gem most of you don't know about. Dragon Quest. This is a Dragon Quest game. Dragon Quest Heroes Rocket Slime. And this game, believe it or not, it's 2 to 16 players. I think that's online only, though. I never actually got to play this game when this was a thing. I highly doubt you can still play online. But it does say wireless DS single card download play 2 to 16 players. But then it also says wireless DS multi-card play 2 to 4 player. So you might be able to link up 16 games and go 16 player. But I also know that if the other players don't have a cart of their own, it just means that you can only play one version, one part of the game, which is the tank battles. You can mooch off somebody else's game and join in for tank battles. That's my understanding. Yeah, the multiplayer tank battles. You can even pit your customized tanks against your friends in multiplayer tank battles using the DS wireless play feature. And that's the one that you don't need a second copy of the game to play, I do believe. Now, let's attempt to describe this game. This game is very difficult to describe. It's basically a genre of its own. But it is most often compared to Zelda. So it's an action-adventure game, very similar to Zelda. It's not a low-budget game. It was targeted toward kids, though. It's meant to be funny. It's not serious. It's not dark. It's just funny, fun Zelda-style game. And that game alone gets a 10 out of 10. But it gets better than that. There are also tank battles. So I'll read the description of the tank battle and then I'll describe what it is, because that's where the game gets really fun and really crazy and really unique and really original, and it's difficult to compare it to anything else. Tank battles. Jump into a colossus slime-shaped war machine and engage in fierce battles against monster tanks. Upgrade your tank, alchemize awesome ammo, and form a goo crew of your slime friends to help you defeat the enemy. And that's where the multiplayer comes in. You can have these giant battles of tank versus tank, and within each tank is you and a crew, whether that's an AI crew or your buddies on your crew. And by the way, it's also similar to Suikoden, I believe, or Suikoden. I don't know how people pronounce it nowadays, but in that you can get like 32 different characters or something to join your crew, and they all have unique things that they're good at. And you decide who's going to be on your crew for the battle. So how you battle is, there's a couple of different aspects. You're in these giant tanks, and you've got to feed, one thing that you can do is feed ammunition into your tank, and the tanks will be firing the ammunition that you send over. They're both firing at the same time, and you can see them on the top DS screen. These two tanks battling, and if ammunition collides midair, then it cancels out. And you can use all of the items that you collected in your action adventure game and throw that in as ammunition. So those items that you collect in the main quest can be used to help you during these like boss battles, essentially, these giant tank battles. And the other thing that you can do is you can actually pick up your crew members, chuck them in the cannon, launch them over to the enemy's tank, and you could do it just to be a dick because it's funny, or you can do it because you actually want to do that. You're like, hey man, like I need you to go into that enemy tank, which you can do, and start messing them up. I need you to like start taking care of business. Go mess those guys up. They're killing us. Maybe you're losing the tank war, the ammunition war. So you've got to try something new. There's different tactics that you can use. And one of the tactics is to just say, hey, screw this. Let's go invade those guys. And you can run into their tank and start blowing up their computer systems. I think you can steal their ammunition. Oh, thanks for the cannonballs, buddy. I'm going to go fire them at you now. I believe you can even pick up their crew members and throw them in the cannon and launch them over to your base. It can get really crazy, and I mean, I couldn't even describe it. I wouldn't even be able to describe the entire battle, but you can check it out on YouTube, find an actual review. And this is obviously a Square Enix game, but this game here, this is getting very expensive. This is worth about $100 or more right now even. But this game, because it's 16 player, and even if that's online only, it's still 2 to 4 player. And because it's so unique, and it's a game that was probably mostly ignored, partly because it was targeted toward kids, I could absolutely see this game going to $500 and maybe even $1,000 if given enough time. People laugh when I say that games can go to $500 or $1,000, but they go there all the time. Have you looked at the NES? You know how many games have reached 1,000 or more and climbing? I remember when Little Samson hit $1,500. And everyone said that's the most it will ever go. That number is astronomically high. Who will ever pay that much for Little Samson? Well, now people are paying $4,000. And it's still going up. So the DS is a much newer console than the NES. But these consoles will eventually hit the same time lifespan as these older consoles. So one of these days the DS will also be 30 years old. And these DS games, a lot of the DS games are already worth a fortune. And this is going to be one of them, very highly sought after, I can guarantee that. In fact, I'm going to show you something. There's a reason I own 2 copies. This was in a previous video of mine, my previous pickup video. Got this at a pawn shop. paid $25 for it and I got $5 off. There's a reason I own 2 copies. And if you think it's because I want to play multiplayer, you're right. But if you also think it's because I think the game will go up in value, you're also right. It's a win-win scenario, and that's the type of games that I like to buy the most. I really like my multiplayer games. I really enjoy playing co-op. I really enjoy playing versus. I really enjoy playing games that are 4 players or more. But 2-player games can be just as fun. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. My ultimate goal is to get to over 9,000 subscribers. And by the way, I do have an eBay store. I will link it below.